Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We are now moving into the weekend. We have two more special selections that we're going to do before moving into next week's Jazz Fusion / Jazz Rock Week. And we have an interesting weekend ahead of us. So today we're going to check out a selection from Goncalo Monteiro. Says last year, my two favorite albums were Human Nature by Nightwish, which you and most people already know, and Hope Swings Eternal by Snow White Blood. They're an up-and-coming German band that deserves more exposure. This was their first full-length album. They've only had one EP beforehand. To go along with it, they filmed a video for You Belong to Me, which features Danny Meyer from Oversense, another German band, and Stimmgewalt, a German choir. I probably mispronounced that. This is, as you may have figured out by now, my request. I must also say their songs are fairy tale themed. Usually a song will be about a specific fairy tale, but this one is about what happens after the happily ever after in every tale. I hope you like it. So I'm excited about this. I love concept albums, concept songs, stuff like that. I can't say that fairy tale related stuff is usually my favorite, but that's usually just has more to do with how it's handled and delivered than the actual content of fairy tale storytelling. So, I am going to start this off though. You Belong to Me, Snow White Blood. I have had You Belong to Me by Evanescence stuck in my head for the past week or so when I started setting up the videos for this weekend. And I saw that this was there, and the lyrics, the beginning of the chorus is "You belong to me, my Snow White Queen," and it's just so close, and it just, for whatever reason, clicked in my head. And that one sentence, I don't know the rest of the song. I don't know the lyrics to the rest of the song. That one sentence has been stuck in my head for a while. So, Goncalo, that's on you. You put that in my head unintentionally. All right, so let's get into this. Let's see what's up. Snow White Blood. You belong to me. Interesting ornamentation going on with the strings against the guitar. Big drums. We're getting a very large atmospheric idea here. All those offbeats against the drums on beat. Very nice back and forth on the accents there. Yeah, so there's some really nice harmonizing there between the vocals and the strings during that last bit there. We got a trading off of verses between the vocalists. Very big atmosphere here, lots of orchestral work to build the atmosphere. Yeah, beautiful way to write those vocal lines. using the bells to really oversell this halftime feel here and give it a larger than life element. Nice way to overlap the vocalist a little bit. Nice little bit of variation on that line that we've already heard twice before. I thought for a second there we were going to move into a bit of a darker atmosphere, but it's really only those 2 bars, and then we kind of bring it back to the more positive vibe that we hear throughout the rest of the song. There's some really light vocalization going on in the left ear, and it sells the section. It really does. This section's weird. It fits very well with the music video, but I don't think the transition into it worked very well musically. We're gonna see where it goes though. All right. So this is one of those songs that I think um, I'm going to have two very different viewpoints, depending on if I look at it analytically or if I look at it casually. And a lot of that comes down to the intention of the group of Snow White Blood, what they wanted out of the song, and how they delivered on that. And a bit of that isn't doesn't make it a very strong song, but it delivers on exactly what they wanted. And I'm going to get into a bit of this, but so I've mentioned before, we've talked about this. When we have metal bands and they introduce classical instruments, I tend to want some classical composition to go along with that. I feel like if you're just going to use the strings, um, or maybe the tuba, some trumpets, some trombones, more of the brass section to just get this wide orchestral feel, that it's sort of underutilizing the instruments. Um, and maybe it's just because I have a classical background that I prefer to hear the composition come along with it rather than hearing these instruments used just because of our collective understanding of what they mean. We understand that they have a regalness, a largeness to it. We hear these instruments in, you know, huge epic movies, and they pop up during the biggest moments, and we kind of have this association with those sounds, not necessarily with the composition techniques. So in metal, I've seen a lot of bands sort of adapt this ideology where as long as you have strings, your song sounds bigger, it sounds better, it sounds bolder, it sounds more epic. And yes, I can't disagree with that. But at the same time, it also, to me, feels like there's a lack of understanding of what those instruments could bring to a band, um, because they aren't being utilized for anything more than the texture they present. And to me, it's sort of a missed opportunity. However, when I look at it from a casual listener's point of view, and we've listened to a few of this, what is this, classical metal, symphonic metal, something like that. We hear this crop up a bit, and I get it from a casual listener standpoint. It sounds good. I can't disagree that it doesn't bring a nice component to a track, especially when you are looking at something like this, which aims to be more fairy tale centric. It kind of gives it a bit of that classicalness, the regalness of it all, and it doesn't sound so much like the harshness that metal has. It provides this softness, powerful, uh, I don't know, courtly, majestic aspect to the music that rock tends to have a hard time finding because it deals in the aggressive natures. We have, you know, the distortions, the overdrives, heavy bass, stuff like that. Um, So right there, just from the start, you hear the strings, and from the beginning, I'm torn because it does. I'm starting to come around to understand why people enjoy just having it, just having the texture there, rather than actually bringing along some of the compositional techniques. But like I said, from a analytical side, from a critical side, I'm listening to it and I'm hearing that we just have some really basic guitar work, providing a foundation that gives it the rock or the metal edge, and then the strings are sitting above that to provide their texture. And yeah, they might have a run, but it isn't extremely complex. It also sort of is rather basic. So we have these two rather basic lines, and then we put these pop-esque vocals. I'm not going to say they're completely pop because there is actually a lot of really cool things that this vocalist did to sort of separate herself as a clean vocalist from other popular vocalists. We'll get into that in a little bit, but it's still a very clean vocal line or a vocal sound with a very limited vocal range in her two melodies. She has her verse melody and her chorus melody. And the range isn't too big on either one of them. They mostly sit around a note and just kind of bounce around within a half an octave, maybe an octave tops. But it's a very muted line as far as range goes and dynamics. So even though it doesn't have sort of the vocal vocal aspects of a pop singing, the melodic line itself is very poppy. It's simplistic and stays within specific ranges to be memorable. And again, that's not bad. I'm not saying any of this to put down any of the work that goes into creating this music. But like I said, though, we have a rather simple foundation with a simple orchestral part above that, and then a simple vocal line. And from an analytical side, there's so much work that could have been done to, I don't want to say improve, because again, I don't want to diminish the work that goes into this. There is definitely a time and a place for music that is not hyper complex or even medium complex. There is space in the music world for all sorts of music. But to me, I just see so many parts where I'm like, oh, we could add a little bit of embellishment there. We could trade that out for a couple of quarter notes. We could introduce some pauses. There is very little rest going on in any of the instrumental aspects. There's just so much space to add complexity, well, to add depth without even adding too much complexity. Um, and that sort of goes through the entire track for me, other than a couple of bits with the vocal work, which does tend to be, or it does seem to me to be the focus of this track. There are so many cool things that are going on with the two vocalists and the way that they layer their tracks, and sort of weave the two vocalists' tracks, melodies into and outside of each other. We have really cool parts where they're working against each other, where they're working with each other. And it's there, yeah, I think there's a lot of work went into really writing the two melody lines and making them interesting, especially when we start looking at some of the variation in the song. It's all done in the vocal work. There's very little variety added to any of the riffs for the guitar or the patterns for the strings. Now, after we get out of the intro, we see that the strings kind of get relegated to like an offshoot of orchestral stings. We don't really see them doing these heavy accents, but they are sort of micro embellishments for what's going on with the vocals. We'll hear the vocals do a line, and then maybe on, the last beat of the pattern of the riff, the strings will come in with, three or four notes and sort of just put a period, put the exclamation mark or the punctuation at the end of the proverbial sentence. And then again, I feel like the strings are underutilized, and continue to just sort of be flourishes to the otherwise rock metal esque sounds going on. And they're not really being utilized to their maximum efficiency. But that's, like I said, that's pretty much just the instrumental stuff. And like I said, that's the critical aspect. Listening to it, more of a casual side, it sounds good. You can't argue with that. It's catchy. There's some nice heaviness to it. The texture work works very well. It gives it that larger than life feel, which goes along with the theme. So again, I'm not putting down the band or the song at all. There's still a lot of really cool stuff going on, and for a casual listener who's not trying to break it down and analyze it, it's probably going to sound pretty good, and they're going to enjoy it, especially if you enjoy this type of music. But then I think what really elevates the track is going to be the vocal work. We see the female vocal come in at the start of the verse, and she does her lines, and I was like, okay, that's the end of the verse. And then we didn't go to a chorus though. We did a verse 2 that brought the male vocalist in, and that is sort of a very musical thing to do. In fact, I was really interested that, yeah, I was interested in that they revisited the verse at all. I think this might have went over a little bit better if we had ditched the second verse and just brought it back at the end as a reprise instead. But whatever. There's obviously some musical inspiration in here, at least as far as the dual vocal parts go, and I like how that happens. Um, for the second verse, though, we see that they begin to intertwine their lines a little bit more. We have the female vocalist start, and as she starts to finish off her line, the male vocalist will come in, they'll overlap for a little bit, and then he'll take over, and they do this little back and forth thing that, again, is very Broadway-esque, and I like it. I think, as I've mentioned before, the vocals are the strongest part of the song for sure. And a lot of work went into the two vocal lines and really working on making them feel unique and creating a lot of variety with them. We can even see that at the end of the second verse when we had already heard prior it's the line that the female vocalist sings before we enter into the chorus. I don't remember what the line is, but we had heard it at the end of hers. We heard it at the end of his, and then well, I guess I said second verse when they started intertwining, overlapping each other, but that would be the third verse. And at the end of that one, though, she says it again to carry us into the chorus, and she whispers it instead. It's the little variations that I like. And I wish I had seen these ideas of taking concepts and minorly tweaking them or adding embellishments in the rest of the music. They obviously have the compositional chops for it. It's just it was applied solely to the vocal work. Which, again, I mentioned at the beginning of this analysis that my divide in how I enjoy this depends on how much weight I give to their intentions. And if their intention is to create sort of this hard rock metal feel with orchestral vibes underneath, and then to really focus in, spotlight the vocals, they nailed it. There is not a lot of attention given to the music, and there's a lot of attention given to the vocalists. And it shows. I think the vocal work is phenomenal in here. And if that was their goal, two thumbs up. I mean, they set a goal and they just smashed it out of the park. So that's where the casual versus analytical comes in. The one part though that really did not work for me on either level is the bridge, I guess you could say. They I'm trying to remember the order. Oh, yeah. So they were standing back to back in the music video, and they were doing this harmonized line, getting louder and louder and louder, and that part was okay because we had I mentioned in the left ear we had some really cool vocalizations by the female singer. Muted though, a lot of the really interesting lines were way down in the mix. I think that that's something that if it's intentional, it's sort of like a little Easter egg, a hidden thing you can look for. But unfortunately, I think some of the elements, if they were brought up in the mix a little bit and showcased, it would actually add to the song in a lot of ways and reduce the monotony in the instrumental work. So that would be something I would like to see in the future. If we checked them out again, hopefully some of the smaller aspects that help change the song up a little bit and add personality and depth actually given a little bit more spotlight. But we had all this rising action, their volumes increasing. We have some more things going on in the background, and then it just cuts out to nothing for a couple of bars. We slowly come in, and there's a piano part, and we have like 8 bars of that. It seems almost so it's such a small aspect compared to the song as a whole, and then we come into the large outro, and I'm just not it was a weird transition into it. We lost a lot of momentum and energy. I don't feel like, because you can definitely have huge rises and then dissipate it into nothing, but I don't feel like this was a dissipation. It was just like gone. We had this rising momentum and it led to nothing. It wasn't cathartic, or anything like that. It was just it just led to like two beats of silence. Not even like an echo of the last note that they held, um, which would have helped with a little bit of the energy dissipation. And then, like I said, we had the piano part, and then it goes into the ending. And I think the piano part into the ending was really nice. It was just that transition to get from the repeated sentence that they were harmonizing on into the piano part. That transition just didn't work for me. And then, of course, at the end, it was very repetitious. We had all this rising energy and all, and yeah, that's another section where just um, analytically, I wish there was more. We pretty much put all the layers down at the beginning. It wasn't until we added in the choir at the end when we added something new. But for the most part, it was just rising volume and not rising depth or rising layers. And I wish there was just something, maybe some embellishment, maybe some ornamentation, just um, have one of your violins just do something. Do some of those little 4 or 5 note runs at the end of every 4 bar phrase, just to add a little bit something to it to provide more momentum forward. But as a listener, it has a very larger than life aspect. As a casual listener, it's very larger than life. You have the strings, you have the choir, you have the heavy rock guitar, you have the woman vocalizing, you have the male, singing the. I think he was singing the title of the song. There is a bit going on, even if it's a few simpler ideas, and there is rising action to it. There is, the volume swell, and then we add in the choir, and the choir is getting louder as well. And it works because it feels fairy tale esque, right? So that's that's pretty much where I stand on the whole song. Is that critically, it's missing a lot of components that would keep me engaged, that I think would elevate it from. Again, I don't want this to sound mean, but it would elevate it from mediocrity to something excellent. And I don't say that in a negative manner. It's right there in the middle. It's not a bad song. It's right there in the middle. And I think if they had added a bit of classical elements or found a way to work in some ideas to elevate the music, the instrumental aspect, it could really rise up to be an excellent track. But as a casual listener, I mean, it sounds good. The atmosphere, the tone, everything's there. They have some really nice vocal lines that work on both levels, the analytical and the casual. Um, and then it ends on this huge note that feels very cathartic, especially given all the tension that we've had throughout with the story of the two people who just don't seem to really like each other and are trying to fight against fate of being happily ever after, and trying to figure out what that means. And I mean, it kind of works on that level. It does. So, yeah, this is one of those that I'm really torn on. Like, I want to like it. I really do. It's just missing a couple of things for me to really put it into, like I said, that excellent range of music. But those are my thoughts on Snow White Bloods You Belong to Me, featuring Danny Meyer and Stimmgewalt. This is where you guys come in. Hit me up in the comments. Let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy it? Maybe you didn't. Let me know if there's anything that stuck out to you. Maybe something that you really thought was awesome and I didn't get to touch on in my analysis. Maybe I didn't hear it. Drop those kind of comments down there. Above that is a description box if you'd like to join the Discord community or support the channel through Patreon. That is the way to find those links. Under that is a like, subscribe, and a bell to ring. They also help out the channel and don't cost you a thing if that's better for you. I'll be back tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be back tomorrow at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 9 p.m. UTC, with yet another special selection. And until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical, of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening whenever you choose to watch my videos.